All right, so I took some students. Hey guys, I'm starting lecture. Can you please either put your homework away or quit the murmuring? Thank you. I was taking some students on a tour of the football stadium where they have the wireless networks that if you've logged on your phone, you've been able to send Snapchat or anything like that. And they told us about an interesting example that I thought I wanted to pass along to you of some challenges you might meet as an engineer. So first things first, I don't know if I've asked you guys this question. What phone app, do you think consumes the most bandwidth for any football game? Take a guess.
Twitter.
Not Twitter. Not Snapchat. Not Facebook. Not Instagram. You're closer. YouTube's closer. Netflix. Netflix is correct.
People watch Netflix during the game.
What kind of people do you think would watch Netflix during a game? Little kids. You got desperate moms. I knew you should have said this before. You got little kids, right? And mom and dad are desperate to get this kid to stop, jumping up and down because they want to watch the football game, right? So what do? They turn on whatever little kids show that they have nowadays, Peppa Pig or whatever, and let the kid watch it while they get to watch the game for a little while, right? So the result is when you're trying to get on Instagram or send us a tweet or anything like that, and your phone is having a hard time connecting to the internet, it's not necessarily because the internet's terrible. It's because you have a lot of desperate moms trying to calm their kids down. So these are the kinds of things that they didn't think about when they were designing the network. And but there's also challenges with money. Okay, so this is the north end zone that they just put in, or this is what the student section is, right? So this is where you all sit if you go to the game, and you have that wireless internet access. So if I zoom in here, the way it is that there's little wireless access points. If you see these little kind of white dots right here, see that? I know it's hard to see, but you see these little white dots I'm circling? They're underneath the seats. Those are the wireless access points. But if you see as I'm starting to circle them, you see how they're not really symmetric? Right? They're not laid out clean. So ideally, you want to lay them out clean, lay them out symmetric so you can maximize the number of people you can get with any one wireless access point. Well, here's what happened. That was how it was originally designed by the engineer. And then he sends up the estimate. He says, okay, well, I want this done by, I want to get it done by April. I have the design done by April and everything approved. We start installing it. We get it done by July 15th so we can spend 2 months testing and doing everything, so that way by the time the students get in to start running it, it works fine. We come up with every stress test we can think of, and so on. That's not what ended up happening. He sends it up, and then they kind of start quibbling over money. Well, okay, well, can you do it with half of these wireless access points? Can you do it in a quarter of them? So they're trying to pull, miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle to lay these out in a certain way. So then they go back to the original vendor, and they've laid out all the cable, they've designed everything properly. And they go back to the original vendor, and they go, no, we need to have all those access points there. You need to install them back in. And this was now, so they didn't come back to them. So they're trying to do this July 15th, which is the day they wanted it done. So then they start installing it, and then they're told, okay, so you've had 45, now you need to put the other 140 in. Good luck. And so that's why it's not all laid out very well, because the engineers had to try to do the best possible thing with what they could, because you can't just tear everything back up, because now it's August, games are coming up really quick, and that becomes the challenge. So that's why in certain sections, if you're sitting in certain places, the internet access is going to be better than others, because there's certain access points where their range is going to overlap, and there are going to be other seats where students just aren't going to have access. And that has nothing to do with the engineer. That was the engineer trying to make the best of a bad situation. So in case you ever wonder why your professors jump up and down and want things done on time, and right? It's not just because it's not because we hate you. It's not just because we're trying to be jerks. It's because we've had to deal with things like this in the past, right? as a nuclear electronics technician in the Navy, we got to get underway. We got to make sure that the nuclear reactor that powers the boat is working fine, right? Meets all safety standards. So you got to put your foot down sometimes. Like, no, we really need this done. We need this decision made. And sometimes you're going to deal with people like bickering that are outside of the engineering realm, all the business people, all that. So I'm sorry if you're going to go there and you see the all the boxes kind of laid out like that and realize that it, I don't want you all to think that's just bad engineering. But at the same time, that's an interesting description of some of the challenges I've been telling you about. Like, good design requires good compromise. You have to think about money. You got to think about how to deal with people. And sometimes you just got to kind of put your foot down and say, we need to get this done because we don't want to get to the Alabama game and have a situation like they had 2 years ago where these advertisers, if you're at the Alabama game 2 years ago, the internet wasn't working until the second quarter, and then it worked fine. The reason why is because they had a vendor who was trying to do a little pop-up ad, and then you click on the pop-up ad, you watch a small ad, and then you can get in for free, and that's how they're hoping to pay for it. And they promised that they could meet this certain stress test. Turns out it couldn't. They hadn't tested it. So they get on there, one of the biggest games in the history of the stadium, and no one can get on the internet, and everybody's mad. So then they just said, you know what, we're cutting off the ad, and then everything works fine. So they would have been able to test that and do stress tests if they had gotten everything done on time. So everyone's kicking and screaming. So sometimes the reason I mention that is because you're going to want to make sure that when you are dependent upon other people, you want to make sure that you have to emphasize, like, well, we have to get this done by a certain time because we have to do tests. Otherwise, you're going to have unhappy fans. You're going to have unhappy customers, right? So I just thought I'd pass along that little story right after the whole story with Gandhi, right? So these are two examples of, trying to do it fast doesn't necessarily mean doing it best. All right, so we've covered the previous sections. Let me kind of very quickly review, even though you did the topical guide objectives. We did instruction fetch, where we got the 32-bit instruction from the program counter. We did the read address, and it was incremented by 4 because of byte addressing. Because all the instructions and the data memory are all getting 32 bits, 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte, 1 byte. They are put together out here. This is 32 bits. So then we start requiring multiplexers to be able to make certain kind of decisions for control signals. So we have, it goes to our controller. We have 2521 is always RS. RT is either read register 2, which comes out here, or it's going to be the write register that we're going to combine with reg write when the value comes back. That will cover where it's coming from today. Then we have our 15 to 0, our immediate value, and we try to sign extend it if we want to do a 32-bit value so we can add it in the arithmetic logic unit. We also have the 5 to 0 come through here to the ALU controller, which has a 2-bit ALU op input. Then we got to the execution stage where the values come out of the registers. We have our PC plus 4 here, right? And so what's happening is we have our 32-bit value. It goes into a multiplexer. It either can be used if we're doing B plus 5 like you did on the quiz on Tuesday. Then we'd have this value and this value. That would be an add immediate instruction. Or we would want it to calculate a branch. We would shift left by 2 because of byte addressing. We have our PC plus 4 to get our result. So if the original program counter was at 256, and I wanted to branch to, 300. Let's just say 261, right? That'll be easier. So I'm at 256. I want to get to 261. Well, the PC plus 4 is why we would automatically add 1. So the number here is actually 257 times 4, right? So that's why you had to do this thing where it was 261 minus 256 minus 1 times 4. Because what's actually happening is you have 256 plus 1, so this is 257 times 4. And it's 261 minus 2, so that's 3, right? So this number actually has to be 3 here and then you shift left by 2 to get 12 here, and then you add that together, and that's how you get the 261 times 4. Does that make sense now? That's why we do that in the assembly language that way. Because it's actually, you know, that's the difference between your architecture and your organization. You can't tell this PC plus 4 to do anything. So if it's an R-type instruction, we would get the 32-bit value here for RS. For RT, ALU source would be 0, and then we add the value, and then we're going to go over today what happens after that. Now this, right here, this is what we're going to eventually use for a store word. So if you remember store word, you know, it's like S2, 0, S1, right? So this is our base pointer. This is our offset. So what's actually happening here is we have S1. The number 0 is coming from here, right? They're added together, and that's on the output, which goes to data memory. And then what's actually happening is S2 is coming from read data 2 and is going to be physically sent to the data memory. And that's what we're about to cover in this next little section here. All right, which basically everything I said here in this paragraph is what I just said. So in order to do this, we need three control signals, memread and memwrite. They're control signals used to determine whether the information stored in data memory will be written to or read. So it's one or the other. There's two control signals. So in the case of an R-type instruction, what's actually happening is we're not writing to data memory at all, correct? So memread and memwrite would be 0. In the case of a load word, we're getting something from data memory and storing it in the registers, right? So memread would be 1 and memwrite would be 0. In the case of a store word, write would be 1 and memread would be 0. There's never going to be an instance where they're both 1. So branch, the control signal used to determine if the instruction is a branch or not. So it's actually, you know, if you have your branch equivalent or branch not equal, right? It's actually going to send out a control signal saying whether or not to branch. Now, what we're going to see here in the data path portion in a second is that you can say the branch is conditional, right? Meaning that there's a branch instruction, but you may not necessarily branch, correct? Does that make sense? So what we need to do is we need to indicate whether or not we're actually going to branch. And we do that by taking the result from the arithmetic logic unit, in this case called a 0-bit, and goes here. So if that value is 1 and we branch, then we use an AND gate to the multiplexer to indicate whether or not we want to actually branch or not. So if it's not a branch, that'll automatically just give us the PC plus 4 value, right? So, but if branch is 1 and we didn't meet the condition, then we still have PC plus 4. However, if we have an instance where it is a branch and the branch condition is met, then it's 1, then that value that we have shift left logical by 2, this was our, in our example, we had 271 minus 267 minus 1 is 3, right? So it becomes 3, this becomes 12, this is 267 plus 1 times 4, right? They get added together, and we now have our new branch address. So 5.9, a branch is a control signal used to determine if the instruction is a branch or not. 1 if branch, 0 if not. And so this stage right here, 5.10, is the data memory stage. And so here's what's happening. RD1 and RD2 over here, these are coming from your registers, right? Register data 1 and register data 2. RD1 always goes to the arithmetic logic unit no matter what. So what's going to happen here is if we have an R-type instruction, it goes through 0 through this control signal ALU source, which you learned about yesterday, right? Or I'm sorry, Tuesday. It gets added, and then what's going to happen is it's not going to be sent to data memory. What we're going to have over here in the next stage is we're going to have another multiplexer comparing the output from data memory and the output from the ALU. Again, we have our sign extended value. It's 32. Shift left by 2. We have an adder. PC plus 4 is either added, goes into this mux, and comes out here. We have this. This is a, I think I can zoom in a little here now. This is the 0 bit that's coming out of the ALU. This is 32-bit result here, right? So if it's in the case of a load word or store word, that arrow that I just drew is when we calculate the result. So in that case of the pointer address, right? So we had load word, we had S2, 0, S3, right? Actually, let's make that 8. So if it's 8, what's happening is 8 is coming through here, right? Does that make sense? S3 is coming here. They are added. This is the base pointer. That's your offset. And it actually indicates which address you want. And if it's a load word, it's going to come out of this. This says read data here. And then we would say, yes, we want a mem read. So memory read here, that control signal, would be a 1. If it's a store word, what's going to happen is we get our base pointer, we get our offset, ALU source is 1, we calculate the address we want. Then what's going to happen is RD2 is the value from the register that we want to store into data memory. So what's going to happen here is it's going to come around here like so and go to this. This says write data. Memory write is going to be equal to 1. And then that value is going to be stored to data memory, and all the stuff you learned about cache memory and cache hierarchy will be done. That's what happens in the black box. If it's any kind of, let's say it's add immediate, right? So we have F equals B plus 5, and we get S0, S3. So we get a value from a register. We take this value from the immediate, we add them together. ALU source is 1, branch is 0, mem read is going to be equal to 0, and mem write is going to be equal to 0. And then we go like so. We do not put it in the data memory. Are all these instructions we were doing previously in the C code, is it starting to make a little more sense how it's actually physically being done? Let's see, what else was I? You did add, you did branch. Let's do a branch here. I think we did branch already. So you get these two values, right? So you have the two registers that you're comparing. You have the two registers you're comparing. And what's going to happen is there's some result that's going to come here. So let's say we meet the branch condition. The 0 bit becomes 1, and then the branch is equal to 1. We have our AND gate. We have our original PC plus 4. And then what's going to happen here is we have our sign extended value. We shift left by 2 because of byte addressing. And then that value becomes our new branch address. Does that make sense? So we've done load word, store word, done an R type with an add, done add immediate, we've done branch. Set less than. All right, so set less than is an R type instruction, right? So what's happened is you get the two values that are being compared. It's like any other R type instruction. It compares. We use the comparator in the arithmetic logic unit, and then we are actually going to send this back to the registers like so. Mem write is equal to 0, mem read is equal to 0, branch is equal to 0. Now, here's a good thing. Let's say it does a comparison and the 0 bit comes out to 1. Since the branch is equal to 0, it's still going to take our PC plus 4. So it immediately goes to the next instruction. All right. So does anybody have any questions on this stage of the data path? Yes, I.
So what if when you're branching, you're not comparing two values in a register, you're comparing a value in a register to like
You would have to put the constant value in a register, because the branch equivalent is always 2 registers. Yeah, that's never going to happen. The question is, what happens if I'm trying to compare a register with a constant? What would happen is I would do some sort of value where I would store the value, that constant, in a register, and then the reason why is so break it down. So remember, we have our opcode, RS, RT, and our immediate value, right? So immediate values are where you use constants, but in a branch we need the immediate value to be able to calculate the branch address. So we have in the 32 bits, we not only have to figure out whether or not we're going to branch, but we also have to know where we're going to branch to as a result. So that's why. Did I answer your question? Any other questions? Okay, so last stage, and then we get to the full data path. So we have 2 more control signals that I want to cover, and then we're going to go over this truth table here. So I'm going to try to make all 3 fit, and then I'm going to scroll up as I go over them. So jump, this is going to be straightforward. Jump indicates whether or not we're jumping. Control signal usage, the instruction is a jump or not. 1 if it's a jump, 0 if it isn't. And when we go over the full data path, actually you guys have already know how to do the jump. Remember from pseudo-direct addressing that topical guide objective from exam 1, where you had to take the 26 least significant bits of the instruction. You recall starting, and then you shift left by 2 because of byte addressing, and then you concatenate the 4 most significant bits. You remember that? So here's what's actually happening. The jump address. So you get this piece. We're getting this PC plus 4 value, or the branch value that comes out of that multiplexer, right? And then we're going to get the 26 least significant bits. We're going to shift left by 2. Then we're going to concatenate the 4 most significant bits from PC plus 4. And then we're going to have another mux here where if it's 1, we're going to jump. If 0, we're going to either do PC plus 4 or the branch address. Does that make sense? So now we're putting the pieces together into a full advanced digital system. So the last part is this control signal mem to reg. So we have 9 total control signals. We have ALU source. We have reg write. We have reg destination. We have branch. We have jump. We have ALU op. We have mem read. We have mem write. And then this last one here, mem to register. So what happens is we have that value that's come out of the ALU, correct? We have a value that came out of the data memory in the instance of a load word, correct? So we only have one place. I know you're all writing this down, but we have these 2 values coming out, and we have one value that goes back to that write data in the registers, correct? Recall? We have to make a decision. We're going to use, and it's called memory to register because it's determining whether or not we're sending the value from memory to register or not. So if it's 1, it comes from memory. If not, if 0, it comes from the ALU. So going back to the definition, mem to reg determines whether the result from the ALU or the read data from data memory is written to the determined register. So the determined register in that definition is RD or RT based on the result of register destination, right? So think of register destination and mem to reg as working in concert. If I have a reg write that I need to know what register I'm going to send it to, and I need to know what value I'm actually going to be writing in the register, correct? So register destination tells me where I'm going, and mem to reg determines which, either I'm taking it from the ALU or I'm taking it from data memory. All right, so I'm going to scroll down so you can't see 5.13. So we're going to recreate that table together. So I want you to intuitively understand, because I can imagine if I'm looking right now, I see probably some of you have already started copying that table. So that had R type. Oh, that's disappointing. I know this one is different. Oh, then. I guess we're not doing that, huh? All right, we're going to have a little bit of fun with Notepad. Yes, please. All right, so the 4 types of instructions in that table in the next TGO 5.13 are R type, load word, store word, and branch, right? And they specifically say branch equivalent. So in this case, BNE is going to do the same thing. So I want you all to tell me, what are the 9 control signals? What's that? Register destination. So put. All right. Reg right. All right, I want you to see if y'all can figure this out without looking at it in your notes that you were just copied. We not have a register reach. I'll explain why once we get to the table. The short version is because it's SRAM in the local registers, the data memory is made of DRAM, so you need to have, recall from the principles of digital systems, where SRAM has the right line, when DRAM you have to constantly refresh it, so you have to indicate whether or not you're going to read or write, so you need signals for both. Yep, ALU source. Yes, great. I'm going to put ALU op. And we're going to break it down specifically 1 and ALU op 0 because it has 2 bits. Okay, so I've got 4. Jump. All right, so we got jump over here. So I'm going to put jump over here, and we're going to add jump there. Branch. All right, we got ALU source, we got branch. So I got 6. Then for edge, we'll put, and if you know, you can abbreviate it that way on the exam, N2R. So what are my other ones? Is there what?
Is there a register memory?
No. No, that's going to be done from ALU. That's going to be done just with this line from the second register to the memory. And then we determine whether or not we're going to do it or not using the other 2 control signals that I'm asking for. Read and then write. Okay. All right, so then we can make ourselves a nice little table. So you can either memorize this table and brain dump it on the exam, and you'll get nothing out of that. Right? That's a waste of your time and my time, right? Or you can actually understand the control signals. which will help you when you're going through a data sheet, whether it's in 485 or when you become an industry and you're trying to determine all these control signals. If you understand how the control signals flow through the advanced digital system, you'll understand it a lot better, you'll write better code, and you won't be the person making Gandhi into a genocidal maniac. Okay? So, the first one is register destination. So what is register destination determining? Yeah. So and specifically, so basically we're trying to determine whether it's an R-type and I-type, right? So if it's 0, if it's an I-type, because it's 2016, and if it was 1, it's 15 to 11, right? So anything where I'm writing here, I need to know that. So determine it's 1 for R-type, right? It's load word, it's an I-type. Store word is an I-type, so it's 0. What about branch equivalent? I'm not writing to a register at all, correct? What about jump? Am I writing to a register there? So when you were designing these things, you all remember from 235 when you were doing like midterms and K-maps, and you had to be very cognizant of your don't cares, because if you didn't, if you just started making things 0, it would balloon the size. That's why in the table, it will specifically say don't care. That make sense? All right. Register write. I'm sorry. Load word. I am store. Put in there. Store words also. Register write. Which instructions here am I writing to a register? Of these 5 types, we have R types, anything with an opcode of 0, load word, store word, branch equivalent, and jump. Which ones am I actually writing to a register? Store word, what is store word instruction? Store word instruction takes a value from the register and stores it in data memory. Sure. What's a load word instruction? So yeah, there we go. So load word is the one I'm writing to the register, correct? Not store word. So register write will be 1 for R-type instructions and load word. And again, I don't care. Store word, I don't care. Actually, hold on. I do care. I don't want to write to those. The reason why I'm doing that there is because I'm explicitly stating which ones I want to write to and which ones I don't. By doing this, I can actually reduce the size of this register destination, because if I'm telling it what register write value is, then I don't care what's coming out of the MUPS. Correct? So that's there. ALU source. So what was ALU source doing? What was ALU source helping me find? I'm getting all the right answers from over here. Sal. It's the person who's has their pen in their mouth and is looking like this tends to get picked on by the professor. What does ALU source do?
We'll do the calculations.
It determines calculations, but which one specifically?
The additive?
Well, okay, so ALU source is a control signal that determines where so it's the source, right? So what are my 2 sources that I'm trying to determine for the ALU? I'll give you a hint. You guys just drew it. Right? What am I trying to decide between here? Yeah, register destination 2 and design extent. So what type of instruction is going to be this one? And what type of instruction is this going to be? I-type. Okay, so R-type. Remember, it's going to be 0 for R-type and 1 for I-type. So is R-type instruction or R-type or an I-type instruction? There you go. Okay, I got everybody. Is load word an R-type or I-type instruction? I-type, very good. What about store word? What about branch? This is where it gets a little tricky. And this kind of goes back to what Hyphen was asking a little earlier. Branch is the I-type instruction, but what's doing is it's taking two values from the register, comparing for the 0 bit, and then taking the immediate value to calculate the PC plus 4, right? So I actually need 0 here for branch. And I couldn't care less what it does for jump. Yes?
When you have the don't care.
I'm sorry, this should be, I'm sorry. 0, this, backward. 0, 1, 1, 0. Yes?
What exactly do you mean when you said don't care? It could be 0 or 1.
Okay, so it means exactly that. It means I don't care what you're sending to it. Now, if you recall from 235 when you did K-maps and binary reduction, that you were able to reduce the size of your logic by adding don't cares and then taking that into the Klein Polsky algorithm where you did your Carnot maps. This is exactly why. So in this case, here, if you do this, whatever value you get, and add in the ALU, let's say you send it back to the registers. But reg write is going to be 0. So you can do whatever you want. I don't care. Send it back so you can bring me a package. I go, now this actually is somebody else's house. So in this case, I actually do not care which one you choose. Yes?
How does the ALU source pick which one to choose, the register destination or the sign?
Okay, so that's where we're going to be in a future TGO where we actually have the controller actually does logic. It gets in the 6-bit opcode and makes a decision at which point it actually will generate these values. It basically uses a lot of AND gates, 6-input AND gates. Any other questions? All right, so branch. Am I branching with R-type instructions? No, very good. Y'all are overthinking the problem again. Load word, am I branching? Store word, am I branching? Branch equivalent, am I branching? Jump, am I branching? Very good. Memory. So in what instruction am I reading from data memory? Correct, load word. Why? What is the load word instruction? Data memory, and then this just becomes mem read. I'm reading from data memory. All the rest of them are 0. Mem write, which control signal? Somebody from the right side of the room. Store word, very good. All the rest are 0s. Memory to register. So this is going to kind of tie both of your questions together. What value am I taking from memory and putting into a register? What instruction? Load word, very good. So if it's memory to register, I want it. If I'm R-type, I'm taking a value from the ALU and putting it in register, correct? Store word, I'm not putting anything into the register. We're not sending anything back, because I don't care. Branch equivalent, I'm not putting anything back because we're going to be saying, because we already have our reg write is 0, and in this case, both mem read and mem write are 0, right? So we don't care. And then jump, again, we don't care. So let's do jump first. R-type instruction, are we jumping? No, let's see who's awake. What about load word? Are we jumping? Store word? Branch. Jump, are we jumping? There we go, very good. All right, so this last 2 columns are the 2-bit opcode. And those are just, we're using those as kind of this is the one that you kind of have to know. So in R-type, for all R-type instructions, remember how the opcode is always 0? So it's going to send 1, 0 to the ALU controller, and then it's going to take your 6 bits from your function and do that TGO that we did in section 3 to produce the logic. Right? Load word and store word are both 0, 0. And the reason is that lag is because it indicates that you want to add every time. Branch equivalent, it's saying I want to do a comparison here, 0 and 1. Jump, I don't care. So let's add one more instruction. Let's do add I. We're going to do add immediate. This is a good quiz type question or exam type question. All right, so now that you all know this, I can add on and add immediate. And let's test how much you actually understand the control signals. All right, so register destination. What type of instruction is an add I instruction? It's an I type instruction, right? So am I writing to a register in an add I instruction? Yes, you are, right? It's a little scary. I put that long myself. So remember, you're doing two values. You've got add I and some sort of constant, and you're storing it into a RT. So if I need RT, which value am I choosing? Am I choosing 0 or 1? 1 is the R-type instruction because we're getting that value from RD from 15 to 11 and trying to write to it. But add I is an I-type instruction. So so B is 0. What about register write? Am I writing to a register in an add I instruction? All right, somebody say yes. Yes. Very good. ALU source. Which one am I taking from? Am I taking the second register or am I taking the immediate value? Taking the immediate value. So it's the same thing as load and store, right? The 1. Are we branching? Am I reading from data memory? Am I writing to data memory? No, you are not. It's an I-type. So you're writing to the registers. I don't know who said that, but it's writing to the registers. Not reg write. See how reg write? They're never both 1. Reg write and mem write. This is I used a term to describe this last lecture. I called it a Harvard architecture, where data memory and instruction memory are separate, and the registers, the fast registers, are separate. Recall from like the first section, I was with this whole thing about we want to have these fast registers and only do data memory when we're doing load stores, right? So when you're doing this table on the exam, register write and memory write should never be both 1. Okay. Actually, hold on a second. I have a funny story. This is the only time you will ever hear me curse, but it's what makes it really fun. Okay, so you're all familiar with JK flip-flops, right? Okay. So you all know that there's Q and Q bar on the output. And what's the big thing about Q and Q bar? If you're doing a truth table. They're the opposite. They should never be the same. But you work on it, and oftentimes they'll both come out 0 and both come out 1, right? It's just natural. Same thing with register write and memory write. They should never both be 1. So when I was in nuclear power school, we had to learn about this, and we had this guy named Senior Chief Bennett, who was a kind of a really portly guy and had this mustache, and he sounded just like Margaret the Martian, which made class very weird, especially since it was at 0700 every morning. So you'd be coming in, like, oh, I'm about to go to class at 9:30. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My lack of shedding tears. So one of my friends, he's up there, and he makes a mistake, and Q comes out to 1, and Q bar comes out to 1. And he just snaps, and he gets up on the table, and the way it works is like, you're above everybody. So just like, I'm going to say this one last time. You never, ever, 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 fucking ever equals Q naught. I never made that mistake again. Register right and memory right. Should never both be one, right? Right. Data Path J and Senior Chief Bennett story J. Those are always fun. All right, so does that table make sense now? Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't finished yet. Memory to register. Am I writing to the data memory or to the register? In add-on. Right to the register. So it's going to be 0, right? It should be the same thing as R type, right? ALU op. Now here's the thing. This is the reason why I want to go through this. It's not an R type instruction, so it's not 1, 0. It's not a branch, so it's not 0, 1. Load word and store word are both 0, 0 because they want to do an addition of both the arc and then your offset. That's the same addition here, right? So that makes it 0, 0. This reduction here is the same reason why, if you look at your MIPS screen sheet, there's no subtract immediate. You just use the compiler, which is doing the compiler-driven encoding in the micro engine, to do the 2's complement in the immediate value, and then just do this. And then finally, we are not jumping. And that's how we got it. Thank you. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this? Yes?
What effectively is the difference between memory and memory register?
Okay, so the difference is, when you are doing a memory, that means you want a value to come out of the register, right? So, or register correct. I should say it that way now. Memory, right? What? Turn left? Okay. Who's on first? So, you got memory. It's a load word. Now, that is the actual physical value that's being sent to the DRAM in the data memory to indicate that you want that specific value. That value comes out of the data memory. We go back up to the previous topical guide objective. That's a value that's coming out here. I also have a value that's coming from the ALU. And the value that I'm going to write back to the memory is going to be one of those two values. The way I determine that is we use a multiplexer of which one is the memory to register value. See the difference? Even though they look pretty similar. Any other questions? All right, so on that note, you now can construct the full MIPS data path. You already know how to do this, right? Because you've already had the fetch, instruction, decode, execute. I have posted this picture on Blackboard already, so you can actually, you're doing the TGO today. You can do this without having to worry about getting every little detail. So let's walk through this. First things first, we have our program counter, right? We issue it to the read address. Remember read address from instruction fetch? We also have our adder, right? So this is add, and then this says 4, right? So we have PC plus 4 every time. So in this write-up, I have a lot of abbreviations because I understand that it's really hard to fit a lot of this on one page. So I'm trying to help you out with some abbreviations. So this is IM is for instruction memory, and INST is instruction. So this value comes out here. That's the 32-bit actual instruction. So you had your R type, I type, and J type, as you recall, and I had all the 3 types. They all 32 bits. They all come out there. So we have to make some decisions. First thing, we send 31 to 26 to the control, which we'll cover a little later. What's actually going on in there. So those are your 31 to 26. 25 to 21 always goes to read reg 1. You can put RR1, that's fine. 20 to 16 always goes to read reg 2. But it also goes to the 0 input for reg dest, for register destination. 15 to 11 comes through here. So that determines the write register. So if we look here at our table, the write register is either 0, the read and write. If it's 1, it's an R-type instruction. Or from load word, 0, and store word, branch equivalent. So that's register write, register destination. If it's 0, that means it's coming from 20 to 16, right? It's 15 to 11, it comes from here. Same thing. That's why add I comes from 0 as well, because it's also coming here. See that? So that's because 2016 is where we're writing to when we're done. $15 to 0 is passed along here. We would have 5 to 0 come here for our function. SE is just sign extension. Make a little note that you know it's 32 coming out. 10 to 6, that's our shift amount, right? So that just goes straight to the arithmetic logic unit. So we have register write. Then I say registers in big letters there, so you indicate that's there. We have RD1 and RD2 coming out. Here, we have 25 to 0, the 26 least significant bits, right? We shift left by 2. That gives us a 28-bit value. That we shift left by 2 because of byte addressing. And then here we're concatenating. Here this says 31 to 28. And now it's a 32-bit value, which we then can jump to. So that's our instruction fetch and instruction decode stages, right? Execution stage. Yeah, that's fine. So, execution stage. We have our function goes to the ALU control. And then we have our 2-bit ALU op underneath here. And then that gives us our 4-bit output, which is then sent straight to the ALU. RD1 always goes to the ALU no matter what. RD2 and your sign extended 32-bit value comes into this multiplexer, which is what ALU source is. Also, we have RD2. This is specifically for store word instructions. This goes straight to write data. So in the event that we have a write data, you can send it there. 10 to 6 is our shift amount and just goes straight to the arithmetic logic unit. From here, this is still our immediate value, but it comes up here. We shift left by 2. Because of byte addressing, and it goes to the adder. Here we have PC plus 4, right? It goes to this adder here, and comes to this mux. This is our branch. This would be our branch address. Here we also send it to PC. We have our jump address, so we can determine if it's 0, 1 here for jump. If it's 0, it's going to be still our PC plus 4. So that's why specifically, if we have branch is 0 and jump is 1, so we got jump here and branch is here, right? So that this way, by doing it in this manner, you can guarantee that if you have 0 and 0, it will automatically be the next instruction. Otherwise, it's either a branch address or a jump address. And this adder here allows us to know how many branches we have to go past the current instruction for a branch, like an if statement or a while statement. And jump, in the instance of going from the while statement back to the beginning, or from, or you have to jump around in order to be able to determine where you are in the function. That's how you do that. See, I've covered 5 to 0 already. So you have the ALU, and then you have a result from the arithmetic logic unit. You have the 0 bit that goes here to the AND gate, and you have a branch. So if branch is 1 and the 0 bit is 1, it'll determine 1, so we'll get the branch address, correct? From here, the ALU value can circumvent the data memory. Here we have mem read or mem write. If mem read is 0, then we want to take the value from the address and put it here on read data. If mem read is 1, that's what we want to do. If mem write is 1, then we want to take this value that we're getting here and then write this data to this address. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to take our value from either mem to register. So if it's from the memory, it's 1, so it'll go through here. In that case, it's a load word. It goes to write data, at which point the write register tells us where we're going to write to. In the case of if it's an ALU, like it's an R-type instruction or an I-type instruction, anything that's coming out of the ALU and we're storing it, store less than, comes out of the arithmetic logic unit. We choose 0 because it's not from the memory, hence memory to register, and then gets stored in the registers. And that would be indicate there. So that would be 15 to 11, it would be 1. So then we have our 5 to 32 decoder to indicate which register we're writing to, and we're writing that specific data, if you recall from the register addressing from that TGO. And then last but certainly not least, what we want to do is we've determined whether or not it's a jump or a branch, and then that address goes back to the program counter. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So the type of thing that you will see on an exam, before we get there, this is also uploaded on Blackboard, but here's what's going on inside the control. Okay, both of these diagrams are uploaded on Blackboard, so you'll be able to copy them. You have opcode. I say 5 to 0. And what's actually going on here is that you have a 6-bit input AND gate. So this says R-type, add I, load, store word, and branch, I think. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Now, the first time when I was taking this class and I was asked to reproduce this diagram, I noticed something really interesting. See the bubbles to indicate whether it's a knot on the input? If you actually split it up like this, it's actually the binary value from your MIPS screen sheet. So I can tell you right off the bat, the opcode for R-type instruction is 0. That add I is 8 hex. And the reason why it's 1000. And then load word is 23 hex. So what I would do is I would just draw out the bubbles there by using the green sheet, and then everything was easy. Everyone's trying to memorize. Like, no, you got the MIPS screen sheet on the exam. Just do that way. And then branch equivalent, the same thing. And then I included branch not equal here to kind of show you the difference. And then jump. And so that case, what's going on here is how, and this kind of, I forget who asked me this question, how do we actually take these values from an opcode and get these control signals. This is how it's physically done. If it's an R-type instruction, if it comes out as 1, well, register destination is going to be 1. See that? Otherwise, if it doesn't come out that way, it's 0. So these outputs are indicating whether or not you're actually getting a 1. For ALU source is going to be a 1 if either add I, load, or store word. So if you're actually following along with this, let me zoom in here. For ALU source, these are OR gates, and so we have add, come on, pen. We have add immediate, or load word, or store word. See that? So that's why, if you look over there, that's why those 3 of those are 1. Make sense? And then you can follow along similarly with the logic. Mem to reg is only going to be 1 in the case of a load word instruction. And as you can see, that comes from load word. See how that's working? Register write. We're going to be writing to a register in the case of an R-type instruction, which we're getting over here. Or we're going to be writing to a register in the case of a load word. Or we're going to be writing to a register in the case of add immediate. We're not doing it for branch, we're not doing it for branch not equal, and we're not doing it for jump, and we're not doing it for store word. See that? And that's why using the don't cares matters, because otherwise you have to worry about saying nots and all this other stuff. You're trying to reduce the logic. Branch equal comes from BEQ. BNE comes from there. I think they just got my story from the Navy there. Now, Q never equals Q naught. Amazing. So ALU op is 1 in the case of, if you remember over here, for R-type instructions. Branch not equal and branch equal, we want these to be 0. And add I as well. Right? And then jump comes from jump. Right, so I cut that out as TGOs, but recall this topical guide objective. Well, what's going to happen is we get our 2 bits from ALU op, we combine with a function, and then we send these 4 bits to the arithmetic logic unit. And that's why we use the 16-1 MUX to be able to determine which ones we're going to do. Right, so yeah, we'll do 5.1 and then we'll complete. So the type of question I will ask on an exam is not just redraw the whole data path, right? Because that's advantageous to people who just are really good at memorizing things, right? And you're not here to memorize things, you'll eventually want to actually be an engineer. The type of question I'll ask you to do is, let's say, draw a MIPS single cycle data path that a reduced MIPS single cycle data path that does certain types of instructions. So in this case, draw a MIPS single cycle data path that implements R-type instructions only. Meaning, take out all of the parts that don't do R-type instructions. So this is a pretty simple one. First thing we know that we don't need, so I can go back up here to the drawing. So here are the parts that we don't need. We don't need jump, right? This is just R-type. We don't need branch, so we don't need this. We need PC plus 4, but it's going to go back. We don't need shift left because we're not jumping. We don't need the concatenate. We're doing R-type instructions, so we're never going to sign extend anything, right? Bye-bye. We need the ALU control. We're not comparing it to any I-type instructions, so we don't need ALU source. I'm going to be writing to the register every time, so I don't need register destination. I don't need memory to register, because I'm just going to be writing to register every time, right? So I don't need a comparison, because I also don't need data memory. So the reduced drawing, ends up being precisely that. You should probably, oh no, you can actually see it better on the screen. All right, so I'll just leave that up there. So PC, it automatically goes to PC plus 4 every time, right? And then just, so PC, we increment by 4, and then just automatically goes to the next instruction. We have a read address, instruction memory, and a 32-bit bit every time. We have 31 to 26 goes to the controller. 25 to 21 goes to read register 1. 20 to 16 goes to read register 2. 15 to 11 goes to the write register. The write data, WD, comes straight from the ALU, right? 10 to 6 comes out because shift instructions are R-type instructions. We have the 15 to 0, but you could actually say 6 to 0 goes straight here to the ALU control. ALU control. You have your ALU op, and then you have your 4-bit output. Read data 1, read data 2, and register write. Does that make sense? So we're going to be doing a number of different examples next lecture, kind of going over more of these types and how do you make certain decisions. That's where kind of having an intuitive understanding of the data path becomes important. And the type of question you'll probably get on exam will include 2. So draw a reduced MIPS data path that does R-type and load word argument, or do an R-type instruction, or do branch or jump instructions only. Actually, you guys would wish that, because that would be a very easy data path to draw. Does that make sense? So we're going to be, I'm not testing you for, are you good at memorizing? Are you good at, do you have a photographic memory? I am testing you on your ability to reproduce this and understand it. And this is basically everybody you're competing with for jobs is doing the same problem. Later in the semester, you guys are ahead. And this is if they ask you about to know Patterson-Hennessy, and a lot of these types of jobs will, knowing this will pay off. So, and I've done it before too, so I'm not a hypocrite. Yes?
Just a general question on this. Where's the controller now?
The controller, okay, so this is the, let's see, so MIPS. The question that was just asked is, where are the control signals coming from? The way it looks in your textbook, oh yeah, that's multi-cycle. I don't want to show you that one. This one. The way it looks in your textbook, all the control signals are actually going to the different parts. They're actually physically connected with a bus. I did not include that because I don't want you to spend lots of time drawing wires when you can just do a controller and then do a little tack and write the. It's the interest of saving space and time. Any other questions? All right, you're dismissed.